Okay, it is 4 o'clock, and I am calling the Policy and Personnel meeting to order. Michelle, may I have roll call, please? Oops, I saw Michelle.
Wong.
Oh.
Here.
Levy.
Here.
Jacobs.
Here.
All members are present virtually.
Thank you, Michelle. May I have approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the agenda. Any discussion or questions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. Okay, the agenda is approved. May I have approval, or actually I'm going to ask a Robert's Rules question. Oh no, never mind. We're going to do them separately in case there's questions on individual minutes. May I have approval of the November 24th, 2020 minutes?
So moved. Or actually, I think it's November 30th.
I'm sorry?
24th.
24th?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the November 24th, 2020 minutes. Any questions or discussions?
I do have a quick question.
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Schultz, for making those corrections that I requested. I just had a quick clarifying question. I noticed that at the top of the minutes you put when the minutes were generated. Is it your practice to put when they were edited or just when they were initially generated?
Board Docs does that automatically as to when they are generated, meaning when I bring them in from the back side where I take the minutes at, when I bring them into the front side of Board Docs, that becomes an automatically generated thing.
Oh, okay, even prior to approval?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, on to approving the November 24th, 2020 minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion of the minutes passes. May I have approval of the December 15th, 2020 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the December 15th, 2020 minutes. Any questions or discussions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of approving the December 15th, 2020 minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? So the motion of the minutes passes. And we are on to items for discussion/action. And we have presentations this evening. Oh, for goodness sake, one moment. There it went. My screen, of course, decided to go out right then. And letter A is 2020 to 2021 Staffing, Recruitment, and Retention Report. Dr. Kieser?
All right. I am turning it over to Tanya Williams, our Director of HR, who is presenting this year's Staffing, Recruitment, and Retention Report.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Also, good evening to the members of our audience. I also have Joanne Armstrong presenting for me tonight. Sometimes it gets a little clunky when I'm presenting, so I'll go through the dialogue and she'll do the presentation. So tonight I'm providing a high-level overview of our staffing, recruitment, and retention data, as well as items that the district's been working on to build diverse candidate pools and drive staff retention. This report provides data that spans over 5 years, and it also provides staff data of race and ethnicity. Research shows that a quality education requires that all students be exposed to the variety of cultural perspectives that represent our nation at large. And the district continues to look at strategies to build diverse staffing plans and candidate pools. So our system, our Skyward system, collects data on both race and ethnicity, and we are required each year to report this data to the Department of Instruction. So starting off with page 4 is our student data. Currently, our enrollment percentages by race is that our white student representation is 30.9%, our Hispanic students represent 30.2%, and our Black students represent 24.5%. On page 6, you'll see a staff breakdown by employee group. And then on page 7, we provide a staff breakdown of building locations. On page 8, the report provides a 5-year comparison by employee groups. In the last column, you'll see that we use a blue highlighted color to show an increase with minority staff in each employee group, and the purple color shows a decrease. The only group that there was no change this year would be our security group. On page 9, we provide a breakdown of our professional educators, and this is by gender, race, and ethnicity. And then on page 10, we provide our hiring summary for the last 5 years. It includes data for the district as a whole, then by contractual staff, and then by non-contractual staff. On page 11, we use the data from page 8 to strategize how to increase diversity in the district. So some of the things that we're working on or have completed or are in the works, we're currently signed up with diversityjobs.com. We signed up with them in November of 2020. And just last year, we had 699 views of our jobs. We also have the ability to boost positions across the nation to build diverse candidate pools. We're also increasing the use of social media by using our Facebook careers page to build those diverse candidate pools. We currently use WeCan as our software platform for recruitment. And keep in mind that WeCan is a Wisconsin-focused platform, so it has its limitations to reach educators outside of our state. So we're looking at other recruitment platforms that would be more robust and also would allow our candidates a better experience when applying for a position in our district. We're also talking with HBCU first. So this is a talent consortium. The platform allows us to partner with student cohorts at HBCUs to build relationships with students and then also build a recruitment pipeline. And then recruitment fairs are still a standard. We're currently attending recruitment fairs virtually. We're attending one tomorrow. We also have one in February. And as more announcements come up for those fairs, we'll be signing up for those. So then we move into pages 12 through 16, which is our separation data. And we break this down by gender, race, ethnicity, and by employee group. And then I did see that Stephanie had her hand raised. Do you have a question, Stephanie?
Yes, I did. Is it okay to ask a question as we go?
Sure, absolutely.
You know, I just had a thought, since we're so close to the state line and you were talking about, you know, looking at other avenues of reaching out to people, do you know what Illinois uses? Is it anything similar to our WeCan? Is that anything that we could tap into, you know, to try and draw some people from the northern Illinois area?
I think you bring up an excellent point, Stephanie. So with WeCan, because it does have its limitations, what we find is that it's Wisconsin focused. Educators that are familiar with the system know to go and look for positions throughout the state with that platform. If we move to a recruitment platform that was education focused, but then also reached candidates outside of the state line. So for instance, one platform is Frontline, which is very education focused. We would be able to reach candidates, and not only that, but be able to advertise. So the advertising piece is also key with building diverse candidate pools. I think using diversityjobs.com, Indeed, and then Facebook, that helps get our positions out there. It also helps people understand that there's more than just our professional educators that we're recruiting for. We're recruiting for hourly folks. And a lot of times our hourly folks don't know to go to WeCan. So when we start looking at creating career pathways and we have folks that are non-certified, I mean, that's a way to get somebody in the door. And then you start creating those career pathways and getting them certified. So I'm sorry, I think I probably went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there with the recruitment platform, but I think there's definitely opportunities there, and I think we could look at what they're using in Illinois and the surrounding areas.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So with our separation data, we run the data by a fiscal year of July 1 through June 30th. And as some of you know, we will be providing that turnover and separation data to the board on a quarterly basis. And one change that we've made in HR this year is when we're collecting the data, we didn't always know the reasons why people were leaving. We had 3 term reasons. So with our data collection, we've now expanded our term codes from 3 to 20. So we're going to be able to dig into the data and determine why people are leaving our organization. This year, we're also using our culture survey data as part of our school improvement plans to drive retention efforts. Tracy Shirk will be presenting to our building leaders and district leaders later this month, and she'll start introducing the data and how we can use that in the school improvement plans. And then finally, we're creating an RFP to have an unbiased consultant review our compensation salaries, review the scope of roles to determine if we're aligned appropriately for staffing, and help us build a rewards and compensation philosophy that supports the district's strategic plan. So those are some of the things that we have in the works to address our retention efforts. So I know I went over the data very high level. Does anybody have any questions or feedback for me?
Anyone?
Yes, I put a question in the comment and raised my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see it. That's so odd.
No problem.
No, thanks, Board Member Levy.
Sure. Just a few questions. You said that looking at the recruitment, you're looking at other recruitment platforms to see what would be more robust. What exactly does that mean? What is the deficiency in the platform that we're currently using that you would be looking for a platform that is more robust? And then kind of my second point, I completely applaud partnering with HBCUs as a proud HBCU graduate. But what does that recruitment pipeline look like? Are you looking in a post-COVID world as having students from HBCUs potentially do their student teaching in Beloit? What does that recruitment effort look like?
All right. So in terms of WeCan, the limitation that we have with WeCan is it's really not able to provide us with analytics. So for instance, when somebody is applying for a job, we really want to understand how did they learn about our job? Was it from Indeed, diversityjobs.com? Were you familiar with WeCan? So we're not really able to pull those analytics. It just doesn't have the capability to do that, where when you see a lot of recruitment platforms out there, they're generating that data, so you have that at your fingertips. The other thing with WeCan is it's a little clunky for our candidates. So every time that they have to apply for a position, they have to upload their recommendation letters, transcripts, credentials and resume. And so once we get a new platform, it's a little more seamless where somebody builds their profile and all of that data is there. So then basically when they're interested in a position, all they have to do is go out there and click on that position that they want to apply for. So when I say enhances like candidates' experience, that's really what I'm getting at. I think we're also living in a world of like that Amazon effect where people are able to have like an app on their phone and many times can apply for a position on their phone. WeCan doesn't have that capability to do that. So I think that's the direction we're trying to go in. It's twofold. It's for us to have some of those analytics, but also for our candidates to have that good experience starting out.
May I interject briefly before you answer the next question? So are you saying that we could be hearing in the very near future a move away from WeCan, or is this in addition to supplement WeCan?
So, and I think that's a great question. So I think I've done a little bit of research. A neighboring district in Sun Prairie is using a different recruitment platform. And I think at first, they were a little nervous to move away from WeCan totally until they really had a good idea that their other recruitment platform was able to sustain itself and that WeCan really wasn't doing the job. So it may look like we would be able to, I think I would propose if and when the time comes that we have both until we know for sure that the other recruitment platform would be robust and it would be the best fit for the district.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know you had a question about the HBCU first.
Yeah, what recruitment looks like. Is that just being in contact with like phone teleconferencing, or is that as integrated and a substantial investment like please come do your student teaching here so you can live in our community, get to know really this is the feel. If it's the latter, I think that might bode well for retention.
Yeah. Really, what is us about this resource is you're not really, there's always the ability to attend like a recruitment fair with our HBCUs. And we have Handshake and it's definitely those resources we'll look at. However, with HBCU, it's really about that relationship building. So they have student cohorts. They represent 54 HBCUs right now. And so with the student cohorts, we would be building relationships with those students. And so it's more of a long-term strategy with those relationships than rather like a one recruitment fair and done and hope that you get some results. I think when you're looking at millennials and our younger workforce that are coming into the workforce, they're the ones that like the relationship building. They like that social and emotional support. And this resource, I think, could provide that for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Could you give me the name of that one more time, please?
Yeah, it's HBCU First.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Board Member Wong?
Okay, thanks for the presentation. A few questions here. The first one is, so the reasons for leaving, and this must be on the exits survey, you said you went from 3 answers to 20, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, when was this done?
So we just here. So 3 terms were retirement, resignation, or a leave of absence. So it really, when you look at somebody leaving and they're just using a resignation, that's where we're really digging into all of those term codes. So people can resign, but we don't know why they're resigning. So we use term codes such as new job opportunity, continuing education, dissatisfied with working conditions, dissatisfied with pay. Those are just a few. One, I think, was military leave. One is health reasons. So I think once we can start compiling better data, then we can get in front of those trends, and it helps our retention efforts. Really no why they're leaving.
No, it's good to hear. I'm surprised that there was just that few options available before. Also, what's the status of the Grow Your Own program? I know that was running for a while. I mean, is that still running? Are we seeing any activity through that channel?
So, Michelle Hendricks-Nora is on right now, and so she's leading a lot of those efforts. And if you don't mind, Michelle, I could turf it over to you. But yeah, we have been doing some work around Grow Your Own.
Good evening. So we reignited the Grow Your Own committee for this school year. Moving forward, we're coming up with fundraising activities, how to get more people involved. The information went out to our high school seniors currently this year because we will be able to award a scholarship to someone for this year too as well. And we're meeting between monthly and every other week so we can continue to move forward and recruit and raise funds to continue this Grow Your Own program for this school year.
Who's part of that committee? Is it made up of from throughout the district, or is it just at the high school?
So district people are on the committee, a couple community members of NAACP. Tim Cullen is still part of the committee. State Line Community Foundation, of course, because they're managing the funds for us. And high school people on the committee, district people from COLAC, and then myself.
Okay. And I guess that, along with the next question, was with recruitment, not just with the Grow Your Own, but as a whole. What are we doing for the Latino population? Are there schools? Is there a focus on that as well?
There is. So I full disclosure, I do need to do some more research into those opportunities. But the Hispanic serving institutions would be much like our HBCUs. And so need to do some research, find some point of contacts, and see where our opportunities are there as well.
Board Member Levy? Oh, thank you, Board Member Wong. Board Member Levy?
Oh, that was old. Thank you.
Okay. I actually have a question. Tanya, and first of all, I'm really, really pleased to hear that. And thank you, Michelle, for everything that you're doing with the Grow Your Own. I think that's a great program that fell by the wayside, and it's really important that we have that up and running. So thinking back on my career with the district, I know that I'm just trying to think of different ways to get more people interested in our district. And I know we had, and I don't know if we still have, a relationship with UW-Whitewater for student teachers. That's the first part of my question. And we used to have money, and I don't remember where it came from, but we had money given to different buildings for interns. And those were pretty successful because, from what I remember, the majority of us kept our interns on and hired them for open positions. And going one step further, I'm wondering why we never have done anything with UW-Madison, being a grad from there. And, I think we get a little bit more diversity from the Madison area than Whitewater. So sorry, kind of three things thrown at you at once.
So there actually has been some partnerships built with UW-Madison, and so Missy Beavers has actually been working with this program very closely. It's called UW-SET, and she's actually on right now. And I really don't want to steal her thunder because she's really done a lot of great work with this program. And so, Missy, would you be able to hop on and kind of give us like a brief overview of the work that UW-SET is in the partnership with that?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. So we are in our second year with Wisconsin for special education teacher prep program. So This program is a little bit different than a student teaching program. We call it a residency program, and it's grant funded, and it's preparing, because there is a need in the area of special education for licensed teachers. It's preparing individuals with their bachelor's degree to earn their master's degree in special education. So it could be a second career, it could be somebody who's a regular ed teacher, and they are committed to 18 months of a residency in, ours are in Beloit. And then at the end of the residency, they're also taking classes. At the end of the residency, they graduate with their master's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. They get a minimum of a $38,000 stipend for going through the program, and then they get 3 years of support after graduation. And the agreement is that we do our best to create a position for them. And as you may or may not know, we always have vacancies in the area of special education. So last year, there were 2 residents in the program through the university. We hosted one. We hired both residents in the school district of Beloit. This year, we've increased our residents that we host to 5. And some of them are previous paraeducators that have worked in the district. And so next year, we're hoping to increase the residents that we host to 10. So it's a really great program that's really brief because I don't have anything prepared, but I would love to bring something because, like Tanya said, it's a fantastic program, which has been very successful for us and the partnership with the university.
Thank you, Missy. Tanya, did I miss it? What about the Whitewater? Are we still doing the students and teachers? And what about the money for interns?
We are. So all of our student teachers and the management of that is under our Teaching and Learning and Equity Department. I can't speak to any funding or stipends that they would receive. Joanne or Teresa might be able to answer that piece. But there is still that relationship there. And then when we're also talking about career pathways, we've been talking with representatives from UW Whitewater that could help us launch those cohorts. So it feels like we're starting to get some of those resources in place. The one thing that is always probably a challenge is the funding piece. So we also have the Fast Forward Wisconsin grant. And so I think once we know that that grant is ready for application, that is something that we'll be looking into to start creating those career pathways.
Thank you. And boy, I'm just full of questions, and I'll try and be quiet. So I just had another thought, kind of tied with Grow Your Own. I know when I was a principal, at least 2 of the paraeducators that worked in my building, I had strongly encouraged to go forward into teaching. And they did so. Do we have any incentives for our paras? Any kind of financial, anything along that line?
No, and I think that's when we're talking about career pathways and some of the grants that we could look into, like that Wisconsin Fast Forward grant, that's where we would look into how we can fund that in terms of tuition reimbursement. Now, if we have a para with a bachelor's degree, that UW STEP program that Missy was just talking about would be the perfect pairing for something like that. So you have a para who's in special education, they have an interest, they also have the experience in the classroom. If we can get them to that point where they have a bachelor's degree, then maybe like that UW STEP program, or if there's something that we could create to get them to that next career pathway, that's what we need to look at, getting our non-certified staff certified.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Stephanie, this is Joanne. I just wanted to add that intern question you have. I would like to get back to you on that information. We haven't had interns for multiple years now. And so I would need to do a little digging into that, so I can definitely get more information on that side. And I think it's important just to note when we're talking about grow your own, the context in which Grow Your Own exists in the district right now as a Grow Your Own program is student-based. So it
Right.
is a scholarship available to our students. We don't have a set program at this point for our employees. And that I want to make sure that those aren't confused in the discussion, is that the committee and the group that's working on Grow Your Own with Michelle Hendricks, Nora, and the community groups in the district is the student-based programming, hoping to bring students back into the education field here
Right.
in Beloit. But
Yeah.
we are also looking for opportunities to do that with our staff as well.
Thank you for the clarification, because I did know that, but I'm just thinking, yeah, I just have all these little thoughts going through my head. So thank you for the clarification. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for the presentation, Tanya, and thank you for the input from Joanne and Michelle and Missy. Next on our agenda, excuse me?
I said thank you as well.
Oh, okay, sorry. Next on our agenda is an additional nurse FTE presentation.
Hi, sorry. I just want to pull up the presentation so I can present it. One moment.
Michelle, was I on mute? Am I saying your last name correctly, Babilius? We've had this conversation many times.
No, sorry. I'm just pulling up the PowerPoint so I can present it. One moment, please.
Okay.
Tiffany, you pronounced it correctly.
Thanks, Misty.
Michelle, did you want me to share it?
Yeah, did you? I'm sorry. I'm not pulling up correctly in the presenter view.
I've got it, Missy.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. Go ahead.
Okay. So the objective is to go over the nursing request to support learning by providing a safe environment for the school health students in a safe learning environment. I'm sorry, if you could just give me a quick moment. I'm sorry, it's just not pulling up correctly for me. I just need to go back into it. I'm sorry, it closed out on my laptop. I'm having laptop problems. Okay, there, sorry. So in regards to nursing, goal of nursing, COVID has brought to light the need we have in our district to ensure that there is a health staff member in every building. Currently, that is not the case. So with the goal of school nursing services to maintain the physical, environmental, and emotional wellness of students to get prepared to learn and achieve academic success, we think this is important. Nursing responsibilities does include surveillance of local health trends and illness and disease in order to ensure prevention of outbreaks in the school setting. Now more than ever, that is vital To assure the records of all illnesses and injuries occurring at the school are kept and conduct a review of these records for trends and to make recommendations for prevention. To assure that medications provided to students by school staff are administered per policy according to the physician order and accordance with the Nurse Practice Act and state laws. To develop health plans for students with emergency interventions or health procedures and communicate those plans with the appropriate staff. To meet with staff to discuss student health updates and issues of concern by attending IEPs, SIT meetings, and 504 plans, completing vision and hearing screenings for IEPs, SIT meetings, 504 meetings, or any other student concern that comes up. Also to serve as a case manager or liaison, bringing healthcare providers, families, and school together to help support the health of our students. So student outcomes, the school nurse helps to increase student attendance. Studies related to nursing intervention and student outcomes report that school nurses have an effect on lowering absenteeism, especially in districts like ours that have chronic illnesses, high poverty, and disabilities. Students with chronic health conditions, especially those living in poverty, are more likely to have a chronic absenteeism, which means they're more likely to have lower test scores, along with lower proficiency in reading and math. They are then also more likely to drop out of school later in life. The school nurse also monitors trends in the community and school to prevent spread of communicable illnesses that can not only trigger, aggravate chronic health conditions, but also can cause outbreaks. Outbreaks in schools increases absenteeism significantly and can cause students to be out for days or even weeks. We're seeing that now in different districts and communities. Nurses increase immunization compliance, which also decreases the likelihood of an outbreak that is prevented by immunizations. These outbreaks can last up to 21 days. Studies show that having a full-time nurse fully staffed in each building increases instruction time. School nurses are in charge of doing vision screenings at certain grade levels for IEPs and by referrals. School nurses are in charge of managing results as well. They coordinate referrals and follow up to make sure referrals are completed. This then gives students the ability to be successful in school by ensuring they capture all the content that's been given by instructors. School nurses also participate in IEP so that if a student is struggling, they can offer their expertise on interventions that can help them be successful in the school setting. Current staffing ratios, as you can see, currently we have 1 nurse, 2 HRAs for 3 elementary school buildings. That's 1 on the east side and then again on the same team for the west side. And then we also have 1 nurse and 2 HRAs for 2 buildings at the intermediate levels. And then there's 1 nurse at the high school along with 1 HRA. BLA, unfortunately, only has someone that's scheduled there about 4 hours every week. Acuity is not equivalent across these schools. So even though there is the same amount of staff per building level, that doesn't mean that the number of health conditions and IEP meetings, diabetic encounters are the same across the board. So again, something that we need to look at and figure out how we can make that equivalent across the board. Having a full-time sub-nurse would allow for someone to be stationed at BLA, but pulled if needed in another building. This would also allow them to be familiar with policies and protocols of the district and fill in for a nurse if needed, if we had just a full-time sub that was here every day. Also, outcome correlation. So the orange line refers to the responsibilities school nurses oversee in a day. This includes administration of medications, performing procedures, attending student meetings, providing in-services. When comparing schools in the Beloit School District, schools who had an acuity of less than 15 per staff ratio had a higher overall positive outcome. So positive outcome would be indicated by the blue line and consist of like higher immunization rates, vision screenings, completed vision referrals, % of students return to class, and higher attendance rates. So again, where the acuity level is at an average or below, we're seeing that they're having better results with students in their learning and outcomes in those buildings.
Michelle, excuse me, I apologize. I should have asked at the beginning. Do you want to answer questions as they come or at the end of the presentation?
As they come, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Wong?
Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. Thanks for the information so far, but I do have a question. A lot of the description that you're talking about, and don't take this the wrong way, and I don't want any of the nursing staff to take it the wrong way, but the vast majority of what you described involves when we have in-person instruction. And I'm just for not only myself, for me, but also the audience as well, and for those that are listening, can you give us a description as far as what an average day or what the nursing staff is doing during the COVID and has been doing during the COVID environment? Because a lot of it isn't involving attendance and all of that.
So right now, even though we're not managing like the student attendance, we are managing like staff member attendance. They're COVID screeners. We've had a number of staff members out, so then we are doing the contact tracing for those staff members, giving callbacks and making sure that they're not coming back in until they're supposed to, coordinating with their physicians to make sure that they are being seen when they need to be seen. And even though we are in distance learning, we are still managing IEPs, SIT meetings, all those things that need like health histories, again, coordinating with health providers to get those health information. Also, we are still completing like vision screenings for those students that are needing IEPs, vision and hearing screenings, I should say. And then we are still following up. So last year we have vision referrals that have not been completed, hearing referrals that haven't been completed. So we've been taking this time to make sure that we're following up with those families as well, to make sure that we're providing resources. We usually, because of the poverty level, they don't always have insurance. So just trying to coordinate how they can get those assistance and resources to them. Again, even with us providing meals during the day too, sometimes families just need extra support and resources outside of what the district can give. And we kind of coordinate that with healthcare providers as well.
Michelle, may I also add that they're providing education to staff and families in regards to COVID?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that information.
Thank you. Board Member Levy.
Thank you. Quick question. I think it's terrible that there's only been 4 hours of nursing placement at BLA, and this was an issue long before COVID-19. Just a quick question to provide some context for us and also anyone who is logged in listening. You mentioned, and correct me quickly if I did not hear you correctly, that the additional nurse FTE could be placed at BLA and then pulled if needed. I can't imagine us saying that the nurse at Beloit Memorial would be pulled if needed. So why would that be an acceptable scenario for the students at BLA?
Because we would want to look at risk. So what would be the risk of pulling someone from BLA versus not having anyone at the high school? So which high school, usually that we don't have that problem because we have 2 staff members there that are scheduled all the time, where that we don't have that in all of our buildings. Some buildings only have either a nurse or a health room assistant in their building. So we have to look at the risk of taking someone from BLA versus not having someone at another school. And the way we figure that out is based on acuity. So looking at like how many students are in that building that have medications, how many students are in that building that have an emergency care plan, how many times in the past have we had to call 911, how many times in that building have we had a serious anaphylactic reaction in that building. And we need to just weigh the risk and benefits of that. So really, like I said, the preference would be to have someone in the building full time. But again, if it comes down to it, and obviously in the real world, we can't always prevent someone not coming in or not having a gap in staffing. So this would just be another way to, minimize the likelihood of us having a gap in a building.
And then one other additional question. Later in your presentation, will you also be recommending that there's a health room assistant at BLA, or is it just solely that you're recommending that there's a full-time nurse at BLA?
At this time, it's a fully nurse at BLA.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't unmuted. Michelle, how many medically fragile, self-contained classrooms do we have in the district presently? Do you know, or Missy?
Yep, I can answer that. There's there's 2 at the elementary, 1 on the east side, 1 on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
2 at the intermediate, 1 at the east side and 1 at the west side, and then there's 1 at the high school.
Okay, thank you. And just for our viewers too, and when you guys, I know when you, and thank you, Michelle, for that explanation on how you go about placing the nursing staff. People, I think, in the community would be quite surprised to realize how high each individual has of different medical needs. I mean, I know as a principal, I myself had to administer the EpiPen, which was successful, but not a fun thing for me. But those things happen, and it's amazing per building how many medical needs are within a building, just for an FYI for the community that's listening in. I'm sorry, Michelle, I didn't mean to steal thunder there.
Oh, no problem. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So both the National Association of School Nurses and the Centers for Disease Control recommend basing school nurse ratios on student acuity, along with the community health disparities, and discourage using standard ratios. Acuity is defined as the measurement of nursing care required by a student or building. So I kind of went over this already, but this kind of gives you a view of where the acuity levels are per building and then where we would like them to be. So financial benefits versus risk. So nurses need time to case manage students' health with their families and providers. Many times students in our districts use the nurse as their primary source for healthcare due to poverty levels. A lot of times families would tell their child to check in with the nurse to see what they think before taking them to an appointment, just because they don't want to spend are not able to spend the money to take time off of work and then take the child, pay for the copay, and have them seen if it's not necessary. So that a significant amount of time is spent with seeing students for those acute reasons. Also, allowing nurses that time to establish a connection with the families and have an open connection will decrease their likelihood of having a misunderstanding and or pursue a lawsuit with the district. Not having appropriate staff can cause adverse consequences due to unpredictable care of students' health needs and increased staff turnover. Lawsuits due to poor care is very costly to a district. Making sure buildings are appropriately staffed gives the nurse time to properly oversee delegated duties to their assistants and staff, as well as manage chronic health conditions and comply with legal obligations set by the government for children with disabilities. There have been several instances that secretaries needed to cover our buildings, as there were no health staff available due to absences and no subs were available in our district. This not only raises the risk of liability, but also costs the time of the secretary spends doing other duties that are not primarily functions of the secretary. This number is expected to rise due to COVID and staff needing to be out for illnesses that we might not have previously had to be out for before. Subs are not well familiarized with our district policies and procedures, along with the duties of the nurse when they are just on an as-needed basis instead of full-time. Current duties that subs do not cover IEPs, screening referrals, follow-ups, or COVID screeners. Therefore, we're paying subs that are not fully able to do the duties of the nurse. So our recommendation would be to have 1 permanent FTE nurse and 1 temporary nurse. So 1 permanent FTE nurse for the district to ensure that medical needs are met, and then 1 temporary FTE nurse for the second semester of this school year so that they could help with like COVID screening, contact tracing, covering the health office out due to COVID as well. So in summary, we just want to ensure that we have a health staff member at every school building, ensuring that all students, regardless of the school that they're attending, would have direct access to a health staff member, providing district-wide coverage if a health staff member, if a health sub is needed, adding additional help to ensure the safety of all staff and students during COVID, such as screening, contact tracing, and support of the schools, financial benefits to the district, as mentioned, and then just avoiding consequential cost of being understaffed.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. That was excellent. An excellent presentation. Board Member Wong.
Yeah, a couple of questions. First of all, is there, do you have the rate of turnover for these positions for the nursing staff through the district over the years? Do you have any information on that? And the second one is there money within the budget, or where are we looking at for the funds for these positions?
So I do not have the turnover rate for the district. I can say that in the last couple of years, we've had to change out 2 out of the 9 HRAs every year for the last couple of years. For them that I wouldn't be able to, I don't have the numbers for that. As far as financial, I don't have that information either. I can get back to you with that once I check in with HR.
Please do so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Board Member Levy.
Thanks. What is the cost associated with the 2 new positions, the one full-time, and then is the second one full-time but temporary just for second term of this remaining school year?
Yes, it is for second term for the remaining of the school year for the temp position. I don't have those figures for the cost of that. It would be dependent on the skills, the level of degree that they have, and also the number of years that they have been a nurse previously. But I can get
someone on the call that has
I'm sorry.
Pay range? No problem. Is there someone on the call that can provide a pay range for? Because the recommended action is to submit this to the full board. I'd like to have a cost range.
If you can give me this is Tanya. If you guys can give me just a minute, I can dig into that real quick. And would it be okay if I put that in the chat box?
That would be fine. And then while you're doing that, I would just like to make a quick comment that I always, as a retired principal, it just never ceased to amaze me the amount of medical needs that different buildings have. And I haven't been obviously in every building, but in quite a few during my career. And I personally think that this request is extremely valid. And if we had more money, I personally would like to see even more nurses brought in. The need is very, very, very great. Just my own little commentary there. Mrs. Armstrong.
Hi. I wanted to address John's question. I don't have the range offhand. I know Tanya's looking for that. But in the preliminary discussion about this, we would be funding this for this year out of money that we have saved in substitute costs and such as those, because we haven't had those costs for the first semester. So we do have that funding plan, and if this is projected for approval, it would be part of our budget building for next year to continue this position. But it was not a budgeted position for 2021. But it could be in our building process, and we do have enough funds saved in substitute costing to cover the costs that would be incurred this year.
Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong. And I just saw, where did that little thing go, Tanya? I just saw something pop up.
48,000 based on years of experience in education.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Delgado.
Hello. I think the question kind of has been addressed, but I'll make it in a different word. Are these positions being requested contingent to the schools reopening, or is this something that it's going to be in place regardless?
This would be something that we would have in place regardless. In regards to the temp position, the main reason we would want to get that done now is so that because of the onboarding process, we want to make sure that we would have someone in place hired and is familiar with our policies and procedures prior to the first day of students returning. So that way they know how to manage those students.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make one more comment in support of this decision. There are many times where secretaries and or principals, mostly the secretary, when the principal's out and about, are asked to do and handle medical needs. And even though training is provided, I can say personally, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the other administrators and secretaries in our district, it's very uncomfortable to be put in a position when you are not. I've had a student seize before, and I'm not a nurse. I'm not trained. I'm trained in first aid. People are trained in first aid, but that's not the same as having a medical professional that is their background. And again, it's amazing how many times secretaries in particular are asked to step away from their regular job to handle something that at times is an actual health crisis. Thank you.
Board Member Jacobs, may I interrupt, please?
Yes, I couldn't get my mute button. Yeah.
Oh, no problem. Just a point of order. I'm certain you didn't mean any harm, but according to Robert's rules, the presiding officer should make an effort to maintain an appearance of impartiality. So just the commenting on how you would vote as far as someone who's chairing the committee is frowned upon.
And you know what, Board Member Levy, point well taken. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion or any motion?
Just for clarification, thank you. I don't remember who put the 48,000 in the chat. So just ballpark are we looking at, since this is going to be prorated, that's 48,000 on average. I get it. It may go up or down because of experience for the year. So since we're looking at two people, are we looking at an approximate cost of around $50,000 for the remainder of this school year?
That would be correct if you're looking at the two positions. However, I do want to make sure everybody understands there are benefit costs as well. So even if they would be hired as full-time employees, so they would be afforded full benefits under that for the remainder of the year. So if you wanted to ballpark it, you could probably average. This is probably going to cost you about $90,000 for the two positions for the remainder of the year with the benefit costs.
Okay, so my only discussion is that by the time that is this going to the full board this evening?
Yes.
Thank you.
Michelle, or no, I'm sorry. Excuse me. That's Board Member Wong.
So the total cost for a full calendar year is going to, or a full school year is going to be $180,000. Is that correct?
Well, they would for next year.
I'm sorry, you were muffled there.
We wouldn't have the temp position for next year, so like looking ahead, we would just have the one, because the temp would just be for this school year.
Okay, correct, yeah. So it would be 90 this year and then 90 next year.
Correct.
Okay.
And that is the estimation if they were to take full benefits. Not every employee takes family benefit. We always try to look at the budgeting in the side of most cost for benefits. So that is an estimate, and I want to make sure we understand it could be less, but that's the worst case scenario is what we look at.
I'm sorry, Board Member Levy?
Oh, I was just going to move forward with a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that we recommend to the school board an increase in school nurses with one permanent FTE or full-time employment position and one limited term FTE for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year, not to exceed $95,000.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to Board Member Levy, help me on that because I didn't jot it all down. To recommend to the full board that not to exceed
An increase of school nurses,
an increase
one
of,
permanent FTE and one limited term. So that will be for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year, not to exceed $95,000.
okay, thank you. Board Member Wong.
Just one comment. I think they would be appreciated, and you probably have seen it through the presentation here, that when you do come with a presentation, try to come with figures for that as well. It's kind of hard to make a motion if we don't know those numbers.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right, the motion passes to the full board. And thank you for the presentation, everyone, and for all of the comments. And next we have our hourly support position, McNeil Intermediate School. And that would be Michelle Hendricks-Nora presenting. Correct, Missy? Oh, there she is. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, I'm here. I'm pulling it up. So I would like to present to the board today a position with the McNeil Intermediate School for the remainder of the school year, for this school year, and it's for hourly school support. The internet is moving very slow today. Okay. The goal for our hourly school support personnel is to provide overall support to identify students to increase our student achievement and engagement in our district, in particular in our the remainder of this school year. This position was created based on our student and programming needs throughout our school improvement process and plan that we developed at the beginning of the school year. This position, primary duties would include supporting the classroom and their activities and under direction of the classroom teacher and supervisor, supporting and reinforcing classroom standards and objectives, and help increase student achievement within our math and literacy within our grades 4 through 8 through individual and group tutoring sessions, assist teachers and administration with collecting data strategies and PD outlined within our school improvement plan in order to increase our student achievement, help identify and run social academic instructional groups, our SAY groups, using the data collected to facilitate small groups to support student achievement and engagement, assist with parent communication and meetings and correspondence, as well as attend parent-teacher conferences, meetings, supports for student achievement, meeting with students regularly to discuss attendance and grades, and interacting with our PBIS and attendance teams for identified students, maintains and communicates student progress monitoring as well, communicating appropriate instructional supports, and also communicating and working directly with the school principals. If we look at this support position, limited term through our title funds for the rest of the school year. And so we're looking at $15 an hour at 27.5 hours a week for the remainder of the school year. That's roughly now about $8,000 for the remainder of the school year through title. And this position will be posted on Weekend and other recruitment platforms, and particularly just to help us with our targeted group and to help them continue to be engaged, whether we're distance or in person, to increase engagement in academic achievement focused through our SIP plan.
Mrs. Hendricks-Nora, Nora, do you mind if we interrupt with board member questions as we go?
Yep, that's all I have. So,
thank you. All right, thank you so much. Board Member Levy.
Thank you. Ms. Hendricks-Nora, what would be the criteria for this type of a role? It sounds like a paraeducator position. Are there other criteria or licensures that a person applying for this role would need?
This would fall under the paraeducator category within our district. And so, of course, we would look hopefully for, I think it's like 48 credit hours for college or associate's degree, or if someone has a bachelor's, a high school diploma, I believe they can take a test or assessment in order to get the position, just like a special ed paraeducator or ESL paraeducator in our district. Under
Thank you.
support is directly working with administrators and teachers.
Got it. Thank you.
We've also uploaded into board docs the job description in there, so if anyone wanted to peruse that, they can look at other job duties and responsibilities.
Board Member Levy. No, I see a raised hand. Oh, did you just take it? You didn't take it?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Hendricks-Nora?
I move that we approve the 1.0 FTE for the hourly support position at McNeil Intermediate School for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year from Title I funds not to exceed $8,500.
I will
And I'm
second
assuming
that.
this needs to go on to the full board.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have an emotion and a second. Board Member Levy, not to exceed how much money? I was trying to write quickly as you spoke.
$8,500 for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second to
I'm sorry. So when you put in that 8,500, I think that was just salary only, and so this is also a benefited position as well. So we do have to consider benefits.
So would it be all right, Board Member Levy, if I put plus benefits?
Plus benefits, but out of curiosity, Joanne, do you have an idea of what those benefits would cost?
I'm sorry, I missed the question if you were talking to me.
Yeah, I was. Thank you. Do you have a ballpark of what para-equivalent benefits would cost for one half of a school year?
If you want to give me 1 second, I can pull it up.
Absolutely. And then while we're waiting, just for clarification, anyone who has the answer, feel free to answer. The just base payment amount is coming out of Title I. Are benefits also coming out of Title I, or is that a separate, or title funds? Is that a separate category?
They will both come out of Title I. They are separate categories, but they're both can be incorporated out into Title I budgeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I just want to clarify, this is considered a part-time position.
So would there be benefits?
Because it's only 27 and a half hours a week, so it's not.
No, if you were doing, and I apologize, I didn't have this information for you. It's going to be, if it's just those percentages, it's about a 15%. So you were saying $8,500 not to exceed, is that correct?
I did.
Okay. So I would say it should not exceed $10,000 because it's actually $9,945. So if we say not to exceed $10,000, you should be fine with that's covering any benefits they could have.
Perfect. And thank you, Ms. Hendricks-Nora, for that clarification. We have it listed in board docs as a full-time position. So if I could just make sure that the motion correctly reflects that this is a part-time position, and then the not to exceed $10,000 for the remainder of this school year.
Okay, I'm going to give it a try, Board Member Levy. So we have a motion and a second for a part-time hourly support position at McNeil Elementary School for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year, not to exceed the salary and benefits combined of $10,000.
Intermediate, but not elementary, but other than that, yes.
Oh, thank you. I did not realize I stuck that in there. All right, so all those or any questions or discussion? All right, all those. Oh, Board
I
Member
just
Wong?
like to make one comment. I think it's great as far as being resourceful with the Title I dollars, specifically probably this year, because the need is probably as great, if not greater, than it has been in the past. So kudos on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right, the motion carries to take this to the full board this evening. Mrs. Hendricks-North, thank you so much for your presentation and congratulations on your great honor.
Thank you again.
Yes. All right. We are now moving on to personnel items. Up is our January 12th, 2021 employment recs, Exhibit A and B. Do we have any discussion on this, or?
I do have one minor question, so I probably should go into closed. I'll make a motion. Let's see here. Move to convene the Policy and Personnel Committee into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second to go into closed session?
Second.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we are now going into closed session.
I have to do roll call.
Michelle,
Do we need a roll call?
Roll call.
I was just getting to that, Board Member Wong. You cut me off, dang it. Go ahead, Michelle.
Wong,
Aye.
Levy,
Aye.
Jacobs.
Aye. All
Motion
right.
carried.
We are now going into closed session, and we will come back for our meeting closing. Thank you.
Chairwoman Jacobs, should I rephrase the question?
Yeah, I'm having trouble with my, okay, there we go. Okay. Yes, we are back in open session because we thought that it was a closed session question, but we decided it was not. So here we are, and Board Member Wong, please go ahead.
Okay, I apologize for that, but my feeling with personnel has been, and after making one mistake a few years ago, was to, if you're going to err on the side of caution, and we can always come back out. So with that being said, the question was regarding William Graymount and his position of assistant principal at the high school. And my question was, is this a position that was vacated? And if so, that was something I was unaware of, or maybe I just missed it. And the second one was, if the position that since he is employed, what position is he vacating, and will that be filled?
So the position of assistant principal at Beloit Memorial was a position that was a result of the reorganization when interim superintendent Green was here and was asked to be a part of. The position that was eliminated was a director position, and when moved to the assistant principal position, that position was filled, but retained the salary and benefits of the director for the remainder of the year. So moving forward, this is an adjustment to the position that he is currently filling with the current salary and benefits for that position.
So there's no change in salary and benefits?
There's an adjustment from the salary and benefits that that the position as a director now have been readjusted to the position that it's currently being filled as an assistant principal. So it has.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions or discussion on the employment recs?
Not on that topic, but I do have one additional question.
Sure.
Okay, employee rec B, there's just one employee recommendation on that recommendation, and it lists mentor, and it doesn't have a placement. Could we specify what type of mentor program that is, and also where the placement is?
Mrs. Armstrong? Or Dr. Kieser? I'm not sure who has the answer.
Sorry, I was looking at the recommendation. This would be a mentor placement at Aldridge, where the teacher is currently residing. She will be mentoring all our mentors are for new hires. So she would be mentoring an Aldridge new hire staff member. So that mentorship, we call them mentor buddies and mentor, you have a buddy and then you have a mentor. So this would be, I don't know what individual she's actually mentoring, but it would be a new teacher within her building.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
All right, I move approval to the full board for employee recs for January 12th, Exhibits A and B.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the January 12th, 2021 employment rec Exhibit A and B. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the January 12th, 2021 employment recs Exhibit A and B, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The January 12th, 2021 employment recs Exhibit A and B passes. Before I will go ahead and say first that our next meeting date will be on Tuesday, January 26th, the time to be announced. Right before adjournment, though, I do have a question. We never really left our closed session with, did we do that formally enough? Mrs. Shope, could you answer that? Or Dr. Keith?
You should have made a motion to leave closed session, technically,
Okay,
but
okay, so since we didn't, do we need to go back and do it, or are we all right?
I guess we can just do a consent. And
Okay.
I can put that in the minutes that it was through consent that you realized you did not need to go into closed session for the question.
Okay, do I have consent from board members Long and Levy? Excuse me.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I consent as well. All right then, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shope. We're now at adjournment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussions? All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
Ms. Shope, are we supposed to get out of this meeting to go to the oversight meeting?
Looks that way.
No.
Okay, well, I think you're probably going to have people in that other meeting.
Invites.
I'll re-invite.
So we stay here.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Board member Levy and the board member Jacobs are in the oversight meeting, just so you know.
All right, our board members Wong, Delgado, and Secretary Shope ready to go?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Ms. Shope, may we have, I'm calling the meeting to order. The time is 5:32 p.m. Mrs. Shope, may we have a roll call, please?
Wong. Delgado.
Present.
Levy.
Here.
Wong. I have 2 members present virtually, and Wong has not responded yet.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully board member Wong will be able to join us shortly. Before I ask for an approval of the agenda, I would like to slightly change the order. I would like to flip number 4 and number 3. We need to review the achievement gap reduction report this evening, and while the 10-year capital improvement report is very important, I don't want to rush through that or push it to the full board if there are questions with our workload already projected tonight for this evening. So if that is agreeable, that we flip numbers 3 and 4 with the understanding that the 10-year improvement plan may be postponed until our February meeting. And it's my understanding that Dr. Kieser already shared that with the employees that were involved in that. So just for the public, that isn't a surprise. So if we can make that adjustment and then a motion to approve the agenda, I'd appreciate it.
Excuse me, Board Member Levy, I'm on Oversight and Finance.
My apologies, Ms. Jacobs.
I had to go back and look it up because I thought I might be losing my marbles. No, I'm in fact on Oversight and Finance.
My apologies.
Okay, Board Member Levy. It's a good laugh.
Secretary Shope, could you make sure that you record Board Member Jacobs' attendance?
Yes, I can record Ms. Jacobs' attendance.
It's all good.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So if we could have a reversal of number 3 and number 4 and then an approval of the agenda, that would be appreciated.
I make a motion to reverse number 3 and number 4 and to approve the agenda for today.
I second.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions needed? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, everyone voted aye. There are no objections. The motion carries. Could we have an approval of the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. There's a motion and a second for the approval of the November 10th minutes. Open the floor for any discussion or questions. And my only discussion, Secretary Shope, under number 2, there are 2 typos, lessons and flexibility. If those could be corrected, I would appreciate that. Other board members, do you have any questions or discussion for the approval of the minutes from November 10th?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, hearing none, all in favor for approval of the November 10th minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, all board members, all committee members have voted aye. There's no objection, so that motion carries. If we could move to our first item under number 2, Finance, Insurance, and Contracts, which is the American Family Insurance Donation and Scholastic Book Packs, please.
Good evening. I am Teresa Morisek, and I will be doing the presentation this evening.
Welcome and thank you.
Thanks. I'm actually quite excited to do this presentation. So if you remember, we had a board meeting where we announced that we were awarded funds from American Family Insurance. And so that started a conversation that was based on students at the center and thinking about equitable support and what our families could use at this time. And so I'm pleased to present an opportunity seeking board approval for expenditures to use berated funds to provide equitable support of reading in the home environment. So on our next slide, we're looking at a proposal. What we would like to do is use the awarded funds from American Family and then some funding that we have in our TLE department budget, not to exceed $35,000 out of our budget, for a combined total of a max of $52,000. This approval will allow us to purchase book packs for all children in grades K4 through 3rd grade in an equitable strategy to build home libraries. This next slide just talks about or shows and illustrates a model that was a longitudinal study, so it's research-based, and this has actually been duplicated many times over. But it's just this idea of why it's important that we're fostering the importance of reading in the home. And so what this model showed was with parents that just read like storybook time to their children, you can see increased outcomes for reading for pleasure and vocabulary, which also helps to inform reading comprehension and phonological awareness. And then in addition to that, when they had parents that or family members also that reported, not only were they just reading to them, but they might have also included some form of instruction, there was this increase in outcomes in early literacy, word reading, and then also reading fluency, which increased reading fluency also can improve overall reading and comprehension as well. So the exciting part is, well, what do these book packs look like? So what we will be doing with this purchase, again, we'll be providing book packs for all students. This is in grades K4 through 3rd grade. This is an equitable strategy and understanding that there are homes that are in our school district where kids do not have personal libraries or access to lots of books. These are high engagement books, and this is an example, this slide, that shows one of the book packs in kindergarten. So the book packs are available in Spanish and English, so the schools can order it either in Spanish or either in English, and that research model translates to other languages, so that's great if they're reading in Spanish or reading in English. Every child would receive 5 books. They would receive a student journal, and Scholastic has created these nice family guides that have tips and ways to help your child in early reading acquisition. So again, just seeking approval for expenditures of that braided funding. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a couple questions. One, has this $35,000 been budgeted into the teaching, learning, and equity account that it would be coming from? And then 2, I love the idea of getting books in the hands of our kids. My question is, who is the person or team of people tasked with selecting the books? I love that they can be in English or in Spanish, and I think it would be great, since we have so many dual language learners, to have a mix, maybe some of your books in English, some of your books in Spanish. But I just want us to be intentional, and I see insects and puppies and bikes, but of the books that have characters, that there is a diverse selection, that our children see themselves in human form reflected in the books that they're reading, especially if they've been provided by the district. So is that, is there some intentionality behind that? Is that something that's already has been thought of?
Yeah, so actually that's something I'm really passionate about. So I'm glad that you're asking that question. So yes, this would be budgeted in that teaching and learning and equity department budget. With COVID, we've had the opportunity to relook at some of our funding with CARES coming in and allocation. So, and actually I just got the first interest purchase order from Scholastic today, and it came in $6,000 less than that estimate, but just wanted to make sure that we were covered. As far as the book packs, Scholastic put these book packs together late this summer for schools with this whole concept of understanding that kids would be in their homes and wouldn't have access to books like they do regularly. And so the way that they're pushing these out are by themes. And so the first theme, which is available, are these high engagement books. If there's additional funding, there are themes that are going to become available that are specifically like social emotional learning or culturally responsiveness, but they're not available until like going into spring or summer. And we wanted to work on, there's like a 2-week turnaround to get these books in schools once the purchase order is made. So we're trying to, go as fast as we can. Now, I say also to say that Scholastic has gotten pretty good at that whole concept of multiculturalism and understanding multiple representations in text. So where these are high engagement, I can ask, we can't pull apart the book packs, they're already pre-made. When I sent out the numbers to the principals, they had the option to pick either a Spanish book pack or an English book pack. So they began to populate a Google sheet that we had just so we would have an estimate of the numbers.
Okay. Thank you so much. Other board members, please help me. I'm on my iPad and not my MacBook. If you raise your hand, I can see it, or there's only 2 others of you. Please jump in. If there are other board members on the call, I am not ignorant. Okay, Board Member Delgado, I saw the message. Go ahead.
So there's no way that they can be like mixed, the languages in the books, because we do have dual language, and even for kids that are already here, they're bilingual. So it would be nice to have, accessibility to both of the languages so they can continue their bilingualism and fluency as far as reading and, and possibly even writing, because within reading, that's, you learn how to write. So I don't know, I guess that's just a little discouraging to me that they're not available to like mix and match.
Yeah, they're pre-made book packs. And so, I mean, there's an opportunity where you could, if you ordered Spanish this time, then the next time, if we did a second wave of this, they could order English, and then they would have the books, right? They'd have some books in Spanish and some books in English. But they are not offering things that you can pull apart.
Thank you.
Board Member Jacobs, do you have any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Are there other board members that are not on the committee but are on the call that have a question or a comment that they need to have addressed? All right. Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm really excited. Thank you to American Family for the $17,000 donation. I'm excited that it is sounding like it's going to come in under budget. If we could have a motion to move that we approve the purchase of Scholastic book packs for our K4 through 3, to move that on to the full board, not to exceed $52,000, with the understanding that $17,000 of that is a donation.
I move to recommend the approval of the purchasing of Scholastic book packs for grades K4 through 3rd to the full Board of Education, not to exceed $52,000, with the knowledge that $17,000 will be provided by the American Family Fund.
A second.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, everyone voted aye. The motion carries. There was none opposed. Thank you so much. And if you are in contact with American Family, please pass on our sincere thanks for thinking of us, especially through this time when kids need books and books that they don't have to share and take back and forth. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you so much for this approval. Have a good night.
Absolutely, you too. All right, we are going to move on to our financial reports. And since we didn't meet in December, we need to go ahead and do in November. We need to go ahead and do October and November 2020.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Wendy LaPointe. Yeah, it's been a while since we all met, and with the holidays in between and whatnot, it's I got to get my mind all the way back into October. So I just want to give you an update of what's been going on in the business office. Right now in the finance department, we're currently conducting budget reviews with all the schools, and they've been going very well. We've got probably about 2/3 of the schools done. And the biggest takeaway I've seen so far is that the spending has been very conservative, and that's likely due to being virtual and also just kind of in preparation of the uncertainty of COVID. You know, last year at the end of the year certainly brought some challenges, and I think the buildings are just trying to be a little cautious, not knowing what might lie ahead in the second half. So yes, we do have 2 months of reports to go through. How about I just go through all of the reports, and then if there's questions, we can do that at the end.
Board members, unless you object, I think that's a great idea, especially in the interest of time.
Sounds good.
Okay, so board members, if you do have a question, I definitely don't want it to be lost. If you could just jot that down. And then we will entertain all questions as soon as we're done with October and November financial reports.
Okay, so starting with October, you see our overall revenues and expenses. We do get a large sum in September that typically gets us through December in the form of equalization aid. So it's never a worry to see the net change of a minus there. The spending in our other funds is down. The spending in revenues is down, most likely to the virtual format that we've been in. Okay, for the revenues, not including grants, we now see some of the blanks that we've been seeing in the last few months are starting to fill in as we receive the different aids and whatnot throughout the year. We are seeing the same trends as we did back in September, where the revenues are slightly down due to our virtual format, but nothing alarming or unexpected. We're basically, on track. Our expenses, again, not including the grants for October, might look a little alarming this month, but that's due to there were 3 payrolls that were run in October, so our salary and benefit expenses show a significant increase. But when we get to November, you'll see that goes right back to what we were seeing in previous months. One other item to note was that unemployment claims have increased this year since COVID, but since we've continued to pay our employees, we are requesting credit on that. The process this year has been a little different and slower due to the volume of claims that the unemployment offices are dealing with. Then we get over to the grant side with the revenues. We're finally getting to the initial rounds of the grant claims, which we started filing in October. When you look at this, just keep in mind that revenues here reflect expenses from prior months. So you'll never really see an apples to apples. It'll always be slightly different. Nothing alarming to report here. We're trending much as we expect at this point. And then finally, we get to the expenses on the grant side. Again, seeing same trends as September. Again, salaries and benefits also look to be up due to the 3 payrolls that were run in October. Nothing out of the ordinary here to report either, trending right as we expect to be. So I will switch over to November. November, it is typically the low point for cash balances in most school districts as we wait for that December equalization aid payment that I mentioned. and also the tax levies that come in January. But in our district, we have a healthy fund balance, so we did not need to borrow for cash flow. Again, the equalization aid that comes in September helps get us through to December. So, we're looking good. On the revenue side, again, trends are where we expect to be, and we've received slightly more this year at this point than we have last year. On the expense side here, we see that the salary and fringe trends are back to kind of normal after those 3 payrolls. So this was what we were seeing, in September and earlier months. Again, nothing new to report. We're kind of at that stage of the year where, it gets very repetitive. On the revenue side, we continue to see on page trending where we expect to be. Still getting some of those initial grant claims in and moving on through the rest of the year. And then finally, on the expense side, again, you can see that the salary and benefits came back in line, and we are expecting to start making some claims on the CARES federal funding, some of which we already have, but awaiting some invoices. So you'll start to see some of that come in. Any questions?
I have a couple questions and then a comment. I'll start with a comment. It seems like the explanation section at the bottom of the page is increasing. So I am grateful for that because I think you guys do a nice job of going through and kind of projecting what things may feel or look a little off and then provide, this was TIF or this was that, or even with there were 3 deductions for payroll taking out in October. So I appreciate that. Hopefully members of the community are appreciative of that as well. And then my 2 questions, the first is, could you elaborate on unemployment claims, and is there a special COVID bucket that, who is eligible for unemployment claims, and what is the mechanism for the district to be reimbursed to that due to COVID? And then my second question is, I know that there was some concern in the district about payments being made late to employees. Has that been rectified? Is there the direct deposits usually hit at a certain time and they happen much later in the day, and then that happened the following pay period as well. So if any teachers or any employees are listening, has that been cleared up, or do you have an update on that, please?
Sure. Remind me, the first question was, on unemployment. Okay, so we've continued to pay our employees. So I think the process with unemployment this year, I think a lot of people filed claims not really knowing what was going to happen to them, and the process has just been slow with unemployment not being able to handle the load that they've gotten. So like I said, we have requested credit because we do continue to pay our employees. So it's just, on our books for now, but we will put that money back when we get it.
So is there a specific employee group that had applied or were eligible for unemployment? I don't think
no, like I said, we continue to pay our employees. I think people at first filed claims not knowing what their status was going to be. So now it's just a matter of kind of backtracking and getting that fixed.
So when you say we continue to pay, I'm assuming there are employee groups that are not working, and that's why they thought they should file unemployment. So are those specific employee groups?
What I'm saying is I think that people filed unemployment before realizing they were going to continue to get paid, because we are paying our employees and they are working currently.
Amy, I'm sorry, Board Member Levy. I think part of it is from March when the state shut us down. And I will say teachers, subs, paras, crossing guards, every employee group started filing for unemployment. And because of the unknown, most people were paid unemployment benefits. And now unemployment is verifying employment work and earnings. And the district maintained the ability to pay all employee groups regardless of the closure last March. And so there are funds that will be due back to the district because unemployment paid claims to employees that continue to get paid. And I don't think it was a malicious act or anybody was being, deceitful in it. I don't think there was any idea what was going to happen. And so this is a process that unemployment's working through with all employers to make sure that the appropriate unemployment payments were made and employees received compensation by their employer versus getting it from unemployment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
And as far as the bank situation, the second time that happened was a bank issue. There was an error in their system that delayed the payment. They have put standards in place to ensure that doesn't happen to us again. So we continue to monitor that situation and work with the bank.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Board Member Jacobs or Delgado, do you have any questions?
I do have a question. So in looking at the report, I see the negatives, and when I see the negatives, I panic. But then you always say, that, they will align eventually, right? So is there like a time in the year where they actually align, where we're like all of our funds are already in our accounts for the expenses to be like, rectified or justified, or where we're not in a negative?
That column is the increase or decrease as compared to the previous year. So what you're seeing is when you see a negative, that means that we are spending more in that category this year than we did last year. It doesn't mean that we don't have the funds there. It's just a comparison over last year. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And one question, I'm not sure if this is relevant, and if not, then you don't have to answer it. But do we currently have like COVID funds to pay employees if they are out of work because either they're exposed or because they are infected? Is there any such thing as that here in the school district?
And maybe that's more of a question for Tanya on the leaves. Tanya, are you still on? And it's okay if I got an answer. I can probably get that answer afterwards. If that's fine.
So I can share with you that the Family First Coronavirus Response Act expired on December 31st.
Okay.
And so at this time, we don't have funds set aside. So if somebody needed a leave of absence, they would have to do that under FMLA or under district policy and using their own accumulated sick leave or benefited time that they would have.
Is there any thought about maybe putting a plan together, because we don't really know how long this is going to last?
Mm-hmm. I think once we know kind of what the plan is after tonight, when we pivot into in-person instruction, I think we'll have a better idea and start having those conversations.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I went off of topic.
That's okay. Thanks.
All right, I can't see the full screen. My apologies. I'm on my iPad and not my MacBook. Are there other board members that are on the call that had a question with either the October or November financial reports?
And I did not, Board Member Levy. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. All right, ladies, thank you so much. We're going to move forward with the presentation of the 2020-2021 Achievement Gap Reduction, or AGR, report, please.
Okay, I'm back. Here we go. Kelly is queuing it up for us.
Hi, I'm having trouble with my computer. There we go.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Okay, I'm Teresa Moratek, and I'm here with Dr. Kelly to help support the presentation of the Achievement Gap Reduction, or AGR. It says beginning of the year report because we do this per semester, and this had been moved along. So just so we're aware of why it still says beginning of the year. Okay, thank you, Kelly. So we wanted to frame this in thinking about where were we, where are we now, and where are we going? So as we're going through this presentation, just kind of keep that frame of mind in the way in which this is organized. Okay, so just a little bit of background around AGR. It was originally created in 2015 by Wisconsin Acts 53 and 71. For those of you that have been around in education as long as I've been, 20 years, it used to be SAGE funding, which was reduced funding, reduced classroom size, and then the state transitioned into AGR funding and then opened up options for that reduction of funding, which is where it says grew from past programs. That's where that's growing from. And then it funds schools with K-3 students, so we want to see that reduction or that funding applied to those grade levels. And then finally, the School District of Beloit had grants from 2015 to 2020, and we renewed that grant last June. The way that the funding is set up is school districts have to choose one strategy that they're going to use across sites, and then they can use a combination of 1 or 3 strategies, but the one strategy needs to remain true. So of the 3 options, class size reduction, coaching across sites, and then tutoring, one-to-one tutoring, the School District of Beloit has chosen coaching across sites. So each site has an instructional coach, which we'll get into the value of that, and then also class size reduction. And kind of in that spirit of where we were and where we are and where we're going, when we reflect last year on some of the progress goals that were created and outcomes, these were how things shook out. So there was a reading goal and a math goal that was created, and then these are the sites in meeting and not meeting those AGR goals. Definitely can see some patterns there, right, with the grade levels and also like reading, right, grades 1, grade 2. Okay, thank you. And when we do just a quick analysis of a plus delta, we can look at where we've had some achievements and outcomes, and then where there's areas for growth. And so again, when you look back at that chart, you can see that all kindergarten students met reading and math achievement goals. 4 out of 6 schools, the second grades met the math achievement goal. Overall, the achievement gap is not growing larger based on the state report card. So that's good because where we may have a large gap, it's not growing. We've managed to sort of sustain it. We want to completely close it, of course, but that's good to know that it's not on a trend where it's widening. And then final point there, that classrooms with students receiving student-centered coaching perform better than classrooms that did not receive coaching. And then those areas of growth are on the right. Majority of first, second, and third grade students not meeting the reading achievement goal that was set by the district. And then just that there's still a number of students not performing at grade level proficiencies. And then also thinking about those below grade level expectations.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about where we are and where we're headed. So I first want to talk a little bit about why we've chosen coaching as one of those strategies. So you can see here a couple of different images, and the one on the left is really around implementation science and drivers for innovative solutions or improvements within an organization. And this model has been applied to a lot of different industries, but education. And it's one way to really think about how we can improve both the teaching and learning environment for our students. And we know from implementation science and also from education research that when teachers have opportunities to grow both in learning the art and science of their teaching, it can be a really important way of driving education outcomes for a school. And one of the reasons for that is because coaching is really job embedded professional development that happens on site with the teacher. It's very hands-on and it's very personalized. Coaching has been shown to be a necessary component for both promoting teacher competence and competence within the classroom. So it's a great way to really move teaching forward. And I think in a year that like the one that we had where there's been a lot of disruption, our coaching models have really helped our teachers navigate some new situations in a way that they maybe wouldn't have done if they didn't have that coach right there in their building to help them along. And then you can see on the table, coaching has also been researched in a number of different ways, but one kind of strong educational researcher is John Hattie, and he looks at across different research projects and looks at the overall effect size of different strategies. And so when they talk about the importance of instructional coaching, they're really talking about the model that we've adopted, where we partner a coach with the teacher, we help them evaluate where they are and set some goals, and then provide that embedded support, thinking really clearly about what the teacher's goals and the student learning goals are and what teaching strategies they might choose. And when we practice coaching that way, then we can actually really move forward on a couple of different instructional practices that have the ability to move students forward a year or even more over the course of a particular school year. So in John Hattie's research, if you ever follow it, there's a statistical model. It's called effect size. And anything larger than a 0.4 means that that's a strategy that has the ability to move students forward more than 1 year's growth. And our coaching model really focuses in on helping teachers develop that credibility with their students, so building the belief that the students can learn from the teacher and that the teacher really can do a good job in their classroom of moving that learning forward. And also with teacher clarity. We do a lot of work through our coaching model with helping teachers get very clear on what their learning targets are and helping students identify what their learning goals should be so that both the teacher and the student can monitor their growth throughout the year. So those are two really important ways that coaching support our learning. The other thing that our coaches do is really support intervention. So both in providing intervention to some of our students, but also in supporting our interventionists and the teachers that do intervention within our building. The coaches play an important role. And again, early intervention, identifying students and helping them close achievement gaps as soon as we start to see them develop is again, a high effect size strategy. So the next question is why choose reduction in class sizes? And this one, it might be a little bit easier to wrap your head around, right? A reduced class size really gives teachers a bit more ability to tailor instruction. They can work in smaller groups to develop foundational skills, those literacy skills and math fluency skills. They have increased ability to differentiate within a lesson to reach all of their different learners and to really facilitate those instructional strategies that work best when you have smaller groups of kids working together. So again, where we are now, for this year, we had just under a $3 million allocation from AGR that was distributed across the buildings. It's not distributed equally among the schools. It's distributed based on a formula that is related to enrollment. And that money has really gone to support both some of our coaches, as Teresa mentioned, the coaches that we have around the district, and then also to provide additional teachers so that we can reduce that class size. Because of this AGR funding and other funding that we have, We do actually provide coaches within the buildings, and for our pre-K3 buildings, we actually provide 2 coaches per building, except at Merrill, they have 1 open position right now. But we try to provide 2 coaches for every building. So that means that 100% of our teachers have the ability to work with a coach. They don't all work in coaching cycles at the same time, but they have access to coaches and they have the ability to get that embedded professional development. And then in terms of class size, 64% of our K3 classrooms right now are meeting that 18-to-1 goal. But if you look overall at the district size, we are meeting that goal. There are a few schools that are still above that goal. And so as we move forward, one of the really nice things about this AGR model is that it is not something where you propose a plan at the beginning of your 5 years and you have to stick with it. They really encourage you to do analysis and continue that cycle of inquiry throughout the grant. And so this is being able to kind of look at this data on an ongoing basis has given us the ability to think about what we might do to proactively and strategically think about the resources that we will allocate next year. So when we did come in June, right at the end of last school year, we talked a little bit about our goals for for renewing this AGR grant. And as you might guess, the context for the school year changed, and so our goals have had to be adjusted a little bit as well. And so we're showing both the proposed renewal goals and the ones that how we've adjusted those goals based on our current context, and we will continue to reevaluate these as we move through different learning formats. But the most important change really is that that screener that we typically use, the measure of academic progress, you may have heard of it as MAP, we're not able to offer it in distance learning. And so we have really had to think about how we were going to gather data so that we could track whether or not we were meeting our goals. And in literacy, the assessment will be tracked through a combination of some curriculum-based assessments, Fontes and Pinnell, and with a screener called PALS, which helps us with phonological awareness. And that's, according to AGR, the one assessment we have to do every year is that phonological awareness screener. In math, again, we were really basing a lot of our assessment in the past on MAP. Going forward, I'd like to see a normative screener like that in combination with some other measures. So we're actually, since we can't do MAP this year, we're digging into some of those other additional measures. And we are going to use this year some embedded assessments from our curriculum as well. So we have beginning, mid-year, and end-of-year assessments that we can rely on. And the goal for both literacy and math is to increase student growth by 10% before the end of the year. I'm not going to get into all of the details on this slide, but I just want you to be aware that going forward, we have really thought about how to align our programmatic goals with AGR and some of the other strategies that we're using. And for math and literacy, we're really thinking around instructional focus goals, how we can continue to improve and strengthen our coaching program, and how we deliver teacher professional development. And then finally, as we move forward through this grant, like I said, AGR is a great opportunity to do cycles of inquiry, to really think about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so we're going to really focus on using the information that we're gathering to proactively plan and really think about where there's student need and how we might reallocate resources equitably so that we can be supporting all of our learners. And we've also spent quite a bit of time over the last few months thinking about how we can align AGR with some of our other funding sources so we can really effectively make the most use out of the combined efforts of all of these grants. And I think that's it.
I do have one question. I started off the presentation with about 3, but you have answered them in the process, so thank you for that. When you look at the 2019-2020 data with the AGR goals that have been met and not met, it's categorized by grade. Has there been any discussion to break that out by race and by gender? Because I would see that as a way to tailor the coaching that our educators are receiving, so that they can go in and deal with the nuances of learning in an effort to meet those AGR goals.
No, we didn't. So we didn't present that here. We actually did do that work. That's part of the end of year report we have to submit back to the state. We do have to do that disaggregation.
Perfect. And is that disaggregation shared with your coaches so they can talk about, just like educators have to differentiate their lessons in the classroom, so coaches can differentiate their lessons for the educators?
Yep, we can share that with the coaches. We also used it as part of the school improvement planning process for this year. So the building admin teams at those buildings also saw that data.
Perfect. Thank you. Board members Delgado and Jacobs, do you have any questions?
I have a number of questions. Sorry.
Go ahead.
But Board Member Levy, I'm on point this time because I'm not the chairperson. Okay, so my very first question, when does the decision have to be made for next year which model we choose? Or is that already a done deal?
Yeah, so when we met with them and renewed the grant in June 15, 2020, that was what we selected at that time. We could check with DPI if there could be changes in that. I can also send to you, Director Jacobs, it's like a FAQ of AGR, and there's all kinds of nuances to this grant. And so where you can pick one strategy and it has to be 100% of the time, any of the combinations. So let's say we say we're going to go 100% with coaching, and we're also going to do reduced class size. That's sort of in the shadows, so to speak, where you also are doing that in combination, but you have some flexibility. Like, for example, after third Friday, you get an influx of 3 kids and you go above that 18, right? Those types of things.
You're so kind. I'm not a doctor. I just couldn't do it. Just a Mrs. or Stephanie. So that's a 5-year commitment we made?
Yeah.
Or just a year commitment? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And Dr. Kelly, she had a conversation with DPI pre-me. So did that come up at all, Dr. Kelly, in your conversation?
I actually missed the first part of that question because I had some audio issues.
That's okay. I just have a lot of concerns with the coaching model, and I will tell you why. My first question really was, do we have to be locked into the coaching model for 5 years now again?
I don't know. We'd have to check with DPI to see what the flexibility is on those strategies. I know we have flexibility around the assessments that we choose to use and how we do some of that analysis. I don't know about the strategies.
Okay. And I'm wondering if it's possible. So I was way back at the beginning in the district when we were SAGE before it turned AGR. And actually, when I retired, I knew we were going to AGR, and I vehemently opposed the coaching model versus the small class sizes. And I would like to see data, and of course not tonight, but I'd really like to see our district data when we were an 18-to-1 model versus the coaching, because I think that what you will see is that all of our elementaries were much more successful with the 18-to-1 versus the coaching for a variety of reasons. I certainly, we were not at this predicament that we are right now with our scores at the elementary level. So I really would like to see that, so we've got hard data. So I have something to back up what I really feel strongly about, because I would hate to see us continuing into a downward spiral. I am absolutely passionate about us making a difference with our kids from those, and I understand the AGR is K through 3, but our elementary schools are the starting point of a kid's education. And to me, it's totally unacceptable to see that half of our kids under this model have only met where they should be at. It concerns me that 64% of the K-3 classes don't have the 18 or the 15-to-1 ratio, and we have all of these coaches. I would like to have more information on how the coaches are consistently working with kids. Are they working with them daily during intervention bands? I have a lot of concerns, as I stated, and I'd really like to see some data in the future so that we can compare what our model looked, how we were being successful when we did the 15-to-1 or the 30-to-2 model versus the coaching. And I know you guys weren't even here for that. I certainly don't mean to come across as like I'm attacking. I'm just very passionate about our kiddos.
I appreciate that, Director Jacobs. And just for clarification, we are utilizing reduced class size as a second strategy. So if you look on slide 9, it'll show you that our average class size in the district is 17.4, so it does come under the 1 to 18 goal. There is area for improvement, though, to your point. In a couple of our schools, when we did this analysis, we noticed they were slightly over. So those are conversations that we can start to have with the principals and budgeting during those cycles, and how to strategically work towards getting those classes down. But when you take the 63%, that's because there's what we just did is you took those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 schools, right, and divided that out. But
right.
Overall, the school average of all of the schools is 17.4 kids.
Okay. If I could have some data in the future presented for the board so that we can see the difference between our success rate over a 5-year period when we were doing the 15-to-1 ratio versus the coaching model, I'd really be appreciative of that.
Okay.
And that was solely when it was this age model, the 18-to-1. I just want to be really specific because it sounds like it's changed a bit with the AGR, that you can do 2 different things, correct? The coaching and the small.
Correct.
We just focus solely on the 18-to-1. So I'm really interested in seeing that data over those 5 years.
I just want to follow up really quickly because I do want to acknowledge that I think that there's something like in the data. I'm not sure that we're going to see the shift that you're looking for, only because our coaching model really has not been in place for very long, and we don't have a lot of data from the time point that it's been in place because of the disruption with COVID. Now that said, for the period of time that we were able to track last year, I can tell you that I went through every math class that had a coach that did an embedded coaching cycle, and we saw gains. So we can try to pull that data together, but we are trying to keep track of that very tightly because I do know that we need to make sure that our coaching model is effective.
Kelly, and maybe I misunderstood, so thank you for saying that. I thought I saw a slide that said that for the past 5 years, we've been doing the coaching and dropped the 18-to-1.
We would have to find somebody who has more historical knowledge than I do, but the coaching model that we're using right now, my understanding started last fall.
Okay, yeah, if you could find that out, that would be lovely. I'd really appreciate it.
Yep.
And I know you guys are working hard. Please hear me say that.
Well,
I'd
be happy to share data that we gathered last year as well. So we can find that and put together what we do have.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you to the team, and thank you to Board Member Jacobs. I will work with Dr. Kieser in the scheduling and the agenda of the meeting to bring that back as soon as it works for his staff to pull those numbers together so we can flesh out some of that data. So thank you for that recommendation. Board Member Delgado, or if there's another board member that is in the meeting that has a question or a comment related to the AGR presentation, which is just informational only. No motion is needed to move it to the full board. Please, I can't see you, so if you could just unmute and please ask your question now.
I do have a question. In looking into the AGR goals, the met and not met, I see that there's two particular schools that have like a lesser of a goals met. Is there any type of correlation for those schools based like on the demographics that they currently have, where that could have impacted meeting the goal, more goals for, for different grade levels at all? I don't know if my question makes sense or not.
I think what you're asking is there any data where we could draw a correlation between the demographics and the outcomes?
Yes.
Is that okay? And from just this slide, I can't tell you, but I can definitely get back to you, because what Dr. Kelly was talking about is we've done that deeper analysis of looking at demographics to determine, proficiency levels. So we could definitely look at that in the school improvement plans. Each school has done that type of deeper analysis and get back to you.
Thank you.
Board Member Levy, could I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Board Member Delgado, I think your question, and unfortunately that's, it's COVID's fault. The MAP testing is so awesome, I think, personally, with the data, and I think Kelly and Teresa, you'll agree, it breaks down the information so well. It breaks it down by gender, by ethnicity, and I think once we're back, whenever that is, and we can do that MAP testing again, don't you agree, Teresa and Kelly, that that'll give us a lot of valuable information? I mean, I know it can give us a lot of excellent data to close some of those achievement gaps that we see. Would you two agree?
I think it's a longer conversation. So I think the short of the long answer is yes, MAP can give us lots of data that we can disaggregate, but there's a deeper, longer conversation about just our overall assessments and the assessments that we're using in general.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so thank you again for the AGR presentation. Again, it was it was informational. And thank you for board members that chimed in with your valuable comments and questions. I would be willing to entertain, as we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, a motion to postpone the 10-year capital improvement presentation until our February meeting.
Board Member Levy, can I ask a quick question before we do that?
Sure.
Because I'm still learning, so I could be wrong. If that's a 10-year, should that be planning and budget, or does that belong in our committee? I thought Oversight and Finance was just the current year.
I think the reason it may have landed in Oversight and Finance is because there are specific projects that are attached to this budget and this school calendar, and the purpose of projecting out. If I misunderstood that, anyone in the meeting, please feel free to jump in. And I see that Mrs. Armstrong has her hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you, Board Member Levy. I just wanted to, before you adjourn the meeting, the motion was not approved. You didn't take a vote, I don't believe, to approve the financials. So I want to make sure that that is done before we close the meeting. Sorry.
No, thank you so much. So one, if we could entertain a motion to postpone the 10-year capital improvement until our February meeting, and then we will do our motion for the financial reports for October and November. Thank you, Ms. Armstrong.
So I move to postpone the presentation of the 10-year capital improvement to our next meeting.
I second.
Perfect. There's a motion and a second to postpone the 10-year capital improvement presentation until our February meeting. And a second. Are there any discussion or questions related to that motion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Is there a motion for the approval of our October and November 2020 financial reports to move that on to the full board?
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. There's a motion and a second to move on our October and November 2020 financial reports to the full board. Are there any questions or discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, the motion carries unanimously. All right, we have come to the close of our meeting. Our next meeting date will be the second Tuesday in February, which is February 9th, time to be determined. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Great. There's a motion and a second for adjournment. Are there any questions or discussion around that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Board Secretary, you ready to start the next meeting? All right, it is 6:33. I'm going to call the special board meeting to order. May I have roll call, please?
Wong.
Present.
Anderson.
Here.
Delgado.
Here.
Jacobs.
Which board meeting is it? Oh, that's why.
Miller.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the thing. Present.
Levy.
She's in the other one, I think.
Larson.
Present.
So I have Larson and Wong present in the boardroom. And we are trying to grab the other two board members who we think logged on to a different meeting invite.
Okay, in the meantime, may I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
That's me.
We have a motion, a second to approve the agenda. Any questions regarding the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Okay, Board Member Jacobs said she was getting back in now.
Oh.
I don't know, do we see the same thing in there? Yeah. Because we can sit back here. Yeah. So probably to see the faces out of the music. If I'm way over here, I'm gonna see nothing.
Okay. I sent Board Member Levy a text message. Has anyone heard from her? Okay. We're gonna kind of, we're just gonna keep going so that we can make sure we start our business meeting on time at 7. So the first agenda item is 2A, updates and clarification of search timeline. So we are able to meet for deliberation on the 19th at 6 p.m. So that would allow us to use the 25th as the candidate forum for staff and community members as we had discussed previously, and then continue. That would allow us to keep the 28th as our final interview night with the board as discussed. Then in the executive section, there was keeping the 23rd at 10 a.m. on hold in case we needed further deliberation. And then there is also a doodle out for February 1st or February 3rd. We have the 4th already set for deliberation, but the 1st and the 3rd were also additional days in case additional time was needed. So if you haven't yet completed the doodle, please do so. So with the finding the time on the 19th, that would allow us to, like I said, do the 25th forum with staff and community members as we had discussed, as well as keep our second round of interviews on the 28th. Are there any questions regarding the timeline? All right, I don't see anybody with a question. So that will bring us to 3A. Is there a motion to go into closed session for an update on candidates?
I'll make a motion. I move that we convene the Board of Education into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, relative to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to go into closed session. Are there any questions or comments regarding going into closed session?
I have one, so I know I'm going to the right place. What will I be going into this time?
The special board meeting closed session link.
Okay, now that sounds silly, but we've had some confusion tonight. Thank you.
All right, and then I would ask that you close this link. We do have a lot of people in the boardroom and everything, just to ensure that we don't accidentally broadcast the closed session. Okay, roll call vote, please, Board Secretary.
Larson,
Aye.
Levy,
I had some technical difficulties. Could someone repeat the motion that we are voting on, please?
To go into closed session. Do you want to read it again?
Perfect. Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Delgado,
Aye.
Jacobs.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you. We are now in closed session, and when we come back, we're coming back to this link. All right? Okay, see everybody in a couple minutes.